Okay, everybody, for those of you who don't know, my name is Michael Forrest, and welcome to I.M.POSSIBLE. Before we get going, I'm going to ask if you can all stay off of this top step here. This way, you can also display okay, and this gives me a little bit of room to move around, do the whole, hosting thing, all right? And if I could direct your attention to the menu wheel in your lower left, you're going to notice at the very top of that is a microphone icon. If that microphone icon is clear, then we'll be able to hear you and what's happening in your environment. So we've gone ahead and we've turned that microphone to red, and this means that you're muted. Now, just because you're muted does not mean you can't participate. You'll notice that there's a pink cheek smiley face on that menu wheel. And when you press on that, it's going to give you a wide variety of options with which to express yourself. So if somebody, tells a deep and meaningful story here today and you're touched real deep and it starts to build up, you can just let it out, just let it flow. Maybe someone tells an exciting story where they like swing across some quicksand, Tarzan style, right? All you have to do is just show how impressed you are by throwing up those applause there, right? Maybe somebody tells a story that really resonates with you and, makes you want to smile. So you can go ahead and do that, right? Maybe somebody's telling a sad story and you want to show them that, that's really sad, right? So you're like doing the frown, right? Maybe somebody tells a funny story, you feel like laughing, right? You start, throwing up this silly emoji here, right? Like that. And then there's this, right? This is not how you ask a question or how you get on a list, right? This is how you get attention in the event that something goes wrong. If, for example, this display burst into flame suddenly, which, we really should have rethought that slide, huh? Because we usually do that bit about the screen bursting into flames.
But it's meant to be exciting.
Yeah, but I always do the screen, display fire on that. And considering you're the one that did the slides, Fury, really, it could have been a better choice. I'm just saying. I'm just saying.
Going on orders.
Right. So what happened here? So that's basically how you get our attention. See if something goes wrong like that. You can also press the X to close this emoji panel, but it's a good idea to leave this panel open because, one, it lets me know how I'm doing, gives me some feedback, but more importantly, it lets the people around you know what you're experiencing. So, if you all of a sudden, person next to you starts going like this, that means they found something funny, right? And you may not agree. I'm like, that's not funny at all. I'm going to go stand it over there. All right. And you can do that. This is VR. All right. Now, what is I.M.POSSIBLE about? Well, I.M.POSSIBLE started a couple of months ago, I think, and it was supposed to be a one-time event. And we thought the world was a pretty negative place. We wanted to, put some positivity into it. And I was thinking that, we could have this event, and maybe somebody would come here who's, going through like maybe a difficult relationship, or they have a difficult assignment at school or at work or something like that, and they were about to give up. And they come here and they hear one of these stories, and they're like, you know what? I'm going to keep on going. And then they get the thing done, and that's what we're going to do. We're going to be telling stories. We're sharing stories today. About where we overcame something that we didn't think could be done, or the people we know, that maybe they did something and you want to share it, and they, told a story about, things that they, couldn't think could be done, right? Also, let's see, we got the hands popping up. So hang on a second. We're going to be opening up the floor to questions and, joining in there because pauses are the natural enemy of the all space event host. But just to give you an idea, right? I have a long history with the word impossible. I don't believe in it. It's kind of like, let's see how to put this. It's, I recently read that impossible is just a word that we use for something that we haven't done yet, right? And for me, it started out pretty early in life. When I was a kid, there was one summer where I had these bullies chasing me, right? And they chased me into this alleyway like every day, and they'd beat me up, and and this went on every single day. And I was, while this was going on, right? I would, in the beginning, I would try to fight back. I tried to run, and they would tell me that don't try to run. That's impossible. They kept using that word, and I thought I knew what it meant, right? I thought like, all right, so, impossible means I can't do it. They said, you'll never escape. Don't fight back. Can't win. It's impossible, right? I'm like, okay, I know what that word means. But it means I can't do it, right? And then my dad, he owned a bar at the time. And when he was, a customer came in and when he settled on his bill, he had the shopping bag and he says to him, says to my dad, he goes, listen, do you have any kids at home? And my dad says, yeah, I got 2 boys. And he goes, oh, well, they're going to enjoy this. And he lifts up the shopping bag and he puts it on the bar, right? And my dad looks into it and he's like, thinking probably, oh, it's a sack of money. It's going to be the biggest tip ever. And he looks inside, a sack of Batman comics, right? And so, he takes it home and he slides one of the comics under my door, and I find this thing and I look at it and I don't read this like a kid typically reads a comic. I read it like it's an instruction manual, right? And so what I did was I took an old backpack and on the side I modified it. I filled it up with all these glass marbles and I restitched the side there. And the next day when these kids were chasing down the alleyway, right, I reached back and I grabbed that drawstring and I pulled on it really hard, right? And then you heard like the glass marbles clatter all over the concrete, right? And I kept running. And for the first time I made it to the garages. And I scrambled up this concrete wall and up on top of the garages, right? And I looked back down the alleyway and I saw all these kids laying on the floor, and they'd get up and they'd fall down, and I'd start giggling, right? I started laughing, and then all of a sudden I stopped laughing because it dawned on me. All of a sudden I was like, wait, I just did the impossible. I just did what they said couldn't be done. And that told me that word didn't mean what people thought it meant. And I thought people had to know. So, statute of limitation is up now, right? So, but what I did was I went to the library, and in the library, I found every dictionary I could find in that building, and I crossed out the word impossible in every single dictionary. And since then, I can't stand that word. That's the kind of thing we're talking about, so I'm going to open up the question panel here. So if anybody has like a story they want to share, a comment like that, you're going to see a raise hand button appear on your lower right, and you press that raise hand button, you're going to get on my list. And so, since pauses are the natural enemy of the All-Space event host, I'm going to keep on going until that list fills up, and we're going to be taking those questions and comments and all that, at these pauses between stories. But I do see we have somebody on the list already. We got Aiden. Aiden, what's up? You're on the air. Good to feel like a radio host when I do that. Where are you, Aiden? Let's see. Aiden, there you go. What's up, Aiden? Oh, Aiden, the great shirt. How could I have missed it? What's up? No, you're gonna have to press that consent button. Maybe you remuted by accident. Let's see. No, let's see. There we go. Should be on the air. How about now?
Jordan knows it. I was in his event a little bit ago.
Yeah.
One of my parents has the coronavirus.
What about the coronavirus?
My family went the coronavirus, and I'm very sad. Jordan already knows it.
Okay.
And that's it I was gonna say, but I'm not gonna say the sad part. No.
Okay. All right. Well, no one should feel compelled to share any kind of thing that they want to. Keep in mind also that we are filming this for YouTube. You'll see Raven and I floating up there in the air. If you want to say hello to YouTube or wave on out, you sit there and wave up the camera like, hey, YouTube, how's it going? If anybody does share like a story that they think is like too personal or something like that, just let me know and we'll make sure we cut it out, okay? We got a lot of people in here, YouTube. We got Robert over here. We got Sean in the, I don't even know what to call this kind of jacket. We got in this jacket here, we got Wolfen VR? Oh no. Okay. So yeah, but that's the idea of what we're doing here. We get the list open because I see we have somebody else on that list.
Wolfen puffer jacket.
Yeah, exactly. All right. Still Aiden. Okay. That's probably on from before. So let's take that off there. Okay, cool. All right. So now let's see. Nobody else on the list here. So you know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna tell another one. In the early days of the US, we had during the gold rush days, right? There was a miner, and he came into possession of a mine, and I guess that's why it was a miner. That makes sense. And so he goes to he's in this gold mine, and obviously he hopes it's a gold mine, and he keeps working it every single day, right? And he goes every day. He goes into town, and he has stops by the saloon there, and there's a man that keeps coming up to him every single day and asking him, "Listen, I'll take that mine off your hands." And the miner looks at him and says, "There's no way I'm ever going to sell. All right, there's gold in that mine. I can feel it in my bones. I know it's there, right? So I'm going to keep on going. I'm going to keep on doing that, right? And every day, the miner goes in and he works that mine, and he's getting more and more tired. He's getting more and more beat up. I mean, it's hard work. And every day he goes into that saloon, and every day that guy asks him, "Can you sell me that mine?" Right? And the guy keeps saying no to him. One day, the miner had one of those days, and I'm sure you've all had days like this where nothing goes right. And every day, that goes on like that. He's got like his fuses are wet, and his pickaxes are broken, and nothing's going right. And he goes into the saloon, and the man says, "Hey, and before the guy could even ask the question, the miner says, 'Listen, okay, fine, I'll sell you the mine,' right?" He sells him the mine, and he comes back into the saloon a few days later, and they sold the mine to is celebrating. He's buying like all these drinks, and he's carrying on and all this stuff. And the guy goes up to him and he says, "Well, what's the occasion?" And he says, the mine, they paid off. We found gold. And the miner's like, "Oh, you got to tell me, how close was I?" And the guy says, "Well, we only dug about 3 feet." Now, for the rest of that miner's life, every single time he was about to give up, every single time, he had enough. What happened was every time that it would go on, he just told himself, "I'm 3 feet from gold." Just like that. And life is like that. When you're facing a difficult situation, sometimes you just gotta, push through, and dig in and just keep on going through it. All right, but yeah, that's the kind of thing. Now, if anybody has any stories that they'd like to share with us that where they overcame difficult odds, or maybe somebody they knew, overcame the difficult odds, you want to share that story. Maybe it's a story you read, and it doesn't have to be in the real world either. It could be in VR. For example, the world you're standing in right now, we didn't think this was possible because when we started working on it, we didn't even have really a computer. We had an Apple iPad and an old laptop that was only capable of running Unity for about 15 minutes before it crashed, right? And we kept at it. And now we have the Ravenhall Forum, and we have the space where we can gather and, under the stars here and tell and share, these kind of stories and stuff, yeah, so it can be anything like that. If you just press that raise hand button, you'll get on our list. You can do that. I see we've got Googles. What's up, Googles? You're on the air. I feel like a radio host like that. That's fun to say. Not gonna lie. Where are you, Googles? Oh, there you are. How's it going, Google?
I'm good. How are you?
Well, I'm doing okay. Yeah. What's up? You have something you want to share with us today?
It's in the real world.
Okay,
Every
in the
day
real
I
world.
practice for basketball,
Mm-hmm.
and I always tell myself to play like it's your last, and I always train to dunk. Well,
Mm-hmm.
four, I'm 4'8", and my goal is 7 foot, 7'9". Every day I keep reaching that last little knot. Just can't get to the rim. But I believe in myself. If you
You have
believe,
to.
you can do it.
Mm-hmm. That reminds me actually of in the U.S. In the Olympics, the very first time the U.S. went into the discus event, right? They would go, they would train really hard. They wanted to make a good showing and everything. They'd never been in it before, and they were comparing themselves against the records that they had to beat. That was known to be, I mean, no one had broken a record in a long time, and they thought that was the absolute limit of human potential. That nobody would ever be able to, to exceed that number. And they kept training every day. Every day they were trained on these things. And when the event came, they had to check in the discs with the Olympic Committee, right? So they went to the committee and they went to check in the discs. And the Olympic Committee's like, you can't use these discs; they're not regulation. And the team was like, oh no, well, what are we going to do? We have to compete. And they said, well, don't worry, we have these regulation discs that you can use. So they gave them the discs, right? And they went down to the training field to warm up and stuff. And even in just practicing and just warming up, they were already breaking records. And the audience, took attention and they were like looking over at them. And when the event actually did start, they shattered every known record at the time. And the reason was because the discs that they had been practicing with were heavier than what the regulation discs are. All right. So they had, the benefit of them being lighter. And now it's common practice to train with, with heavier discs. But back then you'd use the regulation ones. And so, and then it goes to show sometimes when things are a little bit harder, right, it can actually make you stronger. Right. So, that'd be a story there. Google's reminded me of that one. That's a good one. I like that. All right. So if anybody has a story they'd like to share, you just press that raise hand button on the lower right and it'll get you on our list. Again, it doesn't have to be about the real world. Like maybe, you didn't think you could build a world and you could, or it doesn't even have to be your own story. It could be a story that you read. It actually doesn't even have to be, a real story. Like in my case, it was a stack of comic books that inspired me to change my circumstances. So you can do things like that. But yeah, I don't see anybody on the list now. So what we're going to do is we're going to maybe share another one. Okay, yeah, that'll work. In the mid 1980s, there was a couple, and they had a small boy who was about 4 years old, and at the age of 4, he could already speak 3 languages. Right? His parents were very proud of him. He was a very impressive kid. But all of a sudden, well, actually, not all of a sudden. Gradually, the boy started slurring his words. He started bumping into things, right? And well, as he was, doing all that, it was, seemed like he was deteriorating. And he's just starting school. Then he started getting in fights with other kids, and things weren't going real well for him. And his parents, this isn't our kid. We gotta find out what's wrong. So they took him to the doctor, and the doctors, thought initially that well, the father traveled around a lot. He would bring his family with him, so maybe he picked up something, right? So they started giving him all these tests to find out what it was, and they found out that the boy had a disease I've got no business trying to pronounce. It's a disease that's commonly known as ALD, and they told him, your son's probably not going to live, more than a couple of years, and you should spend as much time with him as you can. And they gave him a number of support group, and they send him home basically to watch their son die. But the thing is, the parents said no. They refused to accept it. They went to other doctors. They started asking questions, and they had a high school education as far as math and science is concerned, but they started spending all this time in like medical libraries, and they started reading all these research papers about, these experiments, and gradually over time they started to learn the language of math, science, chemistry. And in doing so, they came in contact, they learned about an oil that has the quality of separating these lipids from blood. And what this does is, they came up with a theory that maybe this would stop the disease. What they did very gradually is they started adding this oil into the son's diet. And then they had the blood tested, and the doctors are telling them, like, you're just lay people. There's no way that you don't think you could do science. You need to spend as much time with your son as possible. And the support group was coming to their house every day. But the doctor eventually humored them and gave the son a blood test. And it turned out that the progress of the disease was starting to actually slow, right? And they thought they were onto something. And the doctor discouraged them, right? And they kept on going. They still said no. And now this is back in the days before there was really an internet, there was no email. So they're writing all these letters by hand. They're making all these expensive phone calls. And they contacted about 100 different pharmacists and chemists and trying to produce and refine this oil. And there was a chemist who was about to retire. It was the last day of work, and he was going through his mail, and he comes across the letter, and he reads this, and it touches him, and he writes them back. He says, "You know what? I'm going to stay on, and I'm going to make them. I'm going to produce this oil for you, right? But we need to call it something." So they named it after the man's son, Lorenzo, and it was known as Lorenzo's oil. They even made a movie about this. And what happened was they started administering this Lorenzo's oil to the son, and he lived to the age of 28, all right, and where he died from complications related to pneumonia. And what happened was they kept very active in with this oil, and anybody that had gets diagnosed with the disease, their organization would contact them, and they'd try to get it to them in time. And just because they refused to accept it, I mean, these were two ordinary people who refused to accept the fate of their son, and because of that, they changed the lives of thousands of people. And sometimes, it can be like that. You never know, what's going to inspire people, and it's a tough thing to do that. Just push on through and just refuse to accept it. And sometimes, breaking through impossible is just a question of saying, just saying no. All right, and that's all you need to do. All right, let's see here. We have we have two people on our list here. We have Googles again. What's up, Googles? You're on the air.
The story about how we got the 50-star flag.
Wait, say this again? I didn't catch that.
I know how we got the 50-star flag.
You do? You want to tell us?
I want to hear it.
This high school boy had a homework assignment, and he knew Hawaii and Alaska. What is it?
Yeah, they are states, yeah.
Okay. And he knew they were going to be part of the U.S., so he made a 50-star flag, and he got a B-. And he started writing letters, calling the president. One day, he finally got a call from the president, and the president accepted it.
Wow. Okay. Can you imagine that? You're a kid, and you're just living your life, you're doing your thing, and all of a sudden, the leaders of countries are calling you on the phone like that.
I had no idea. I didn't know that a school could.
Yeah, I hadn't heard that
50-star
one.
flag. That's
I would
cool.
have to check it out and read that.
It's really
That
cool.
sounds really neat.
Yeah.
All right, we have
Yeah.
McVeteran. McVeteran, you're on the air. Where are you? There you go. Where are you? There. No.
Okay, so I just wanted to say, all right, that through these difficult times, I just want to remember to remind everybody to stay clean, to stay healthy, to wash your hands. And a good way of doing that is by buying Mr. Clean cleaning products. Therefore, you can protect you and your family.
You know what, though? Listen, we do film this and we put this out on YouTube, and I don't want to get sued for a copyright violation.
No.
I don't want to
How
do that.
about
I can't
this?
be advertised.
But I think that
But
might
you know
have
what,
something
though?
to do with his look. Is that
You know what,
that's my
though?
question.
You know what, though? Listen, while we're out there on YouTube, if the good people at said cleaning company would like us to do commercials, we would consider it.
Ooh.
I'm just saying. We would.
Question.
That would be very
What's your
your
channel?
What's our channel? You can find us at Ravenhall Events or Ravenhall Labs. If you do that search for that on YouTube, you'll find our channel. We're about a month behind on videos because we were doing another impossible thing. We're working on a new event called Shark Time, and we have all these special effects. The set is interact, like the actual set moves and stuff. It does all this cool things to interact with the audience. It's going to be a lot of fun. I'm really excited to show all you guys. And there
That's
was a
cool.
bunch of times while we were working on that where we did say the impossible word. And as you know, I can't stand that word, so we kept on going. And now the set works. It's interactive. We just have a couple of things to make it more performance so that we can get it featured, you know. And I actually recently read that somebody said that, you know, doing transparencies on mobile wasn't possible, but you know what? We found a way to make
Yeah.
it work. Yeah.
That
Yeah.
is not impossible. That is not even close
Yeah,
to
it
impossible.
is
but
not.
yeah,
It is
alright.
not. I just like, you know, I get a kick out of when somebody says something's impossible, and then we do it anyway.
Yeah,
Because like I
yeah.
said, I don't believe in that word. All right, let's see. Do we have anyone else on the list here? No, we do not. All right, cool. All right, so I'm gonna end up sharing another story. Here we go. There was in my teens, my late teens, when I was I guess 18 or so. My friend Chris and I we were getting into camping and stuff like that, right? So we went up to you know, a place called Lake George, upstate New York, and we were, and you know, it had been raining for a couple months before we went, and you know, we went up and we had heard that there was, because of all the rains, there were all these waterfalls going into the lake itself, and it was supposed to be very beautiful, and we are going to go check it out, right? So we were, you know, we're hiking around the lake, and we're up on top of one of these waterfalls, and my friend Chris, you know, he slips on some of the water in the waterfall, and he falls down on this rock, and you know, the water carries him away, and like, and he actually goes right into my legs and knocks me over, and then both of us kind of explode off the edge of the waterfall, and we drop down about 12 feet, you know, big splash, you know, land in the water, and you know, we weren't hurt or anything. We came up out of the water and we were laughing, right? It was pretty funny. But then we tried to get back up on shore, and every time we, like, you know, were trying to get like a foothold or grab onto the shore, all these giant like walls of mud kept sliding down, and we couldn't get back on land, and we stopped laughing. It wasn't funny anymore. It was starting to get serious. We started to get scared, you know. And you know, we looked across the lake, and there was this big boulder there where you saw our where we saw all these tents and you know, where our campsite was. And we figured we could just swim for it. We were both pretty strong swimmers. But you know, I don't know if you've ever you know, swum in, you know, in you know, fully dressed and in boots before, but it's a little bit of a different experience, right? And we get about halfway across the lake, and all of a sudden, Chris calls out to me, and he says, "You know, listen, I don't think I'm going to make it." All right. Now I look back from where we came from, and I looked to where we were going, and it was the same distance either way. And I told him so. So I said, "All right, listen, we're gonna have to keep on going, right?" And you know, so I convinced him to try, and we started digging in, and I started feeling it too, and I didn't think we were gonna make it, and I started getting discouraged, and we just kept on pushing. And as soon as I was about to give up, Chris started yelling out, "You know, we're not gonna go out like this. We got to keep going." And you know, and then we would just kind of yell like that to each other back and forth as, you know, as we kept on going. And it was, you know, got to a point where it was just really painful. And eventually we, you know, came to that boulder, and we pulled ourselves up there, and we just kind of collapsed down. And after about an hour, neither one of us said anything, right? Then an hour goes by, and Chris goes, "We made it," right? And we ended up staying an extra day just to recover from this. It was like, you know, really took a lot out of us, you know. But I learned something then there, you know, like when you don't think you can go on, and you're like about to give up, you sometimes you have, you know, a little bit extra in you that you may not even know, and you just got to keep on pushing like that. All right, now we are about out of time, but before we finish this off here, I want to thank you all for joining us today. You've been a great audience, and I want to say, if you want to follow us on Twitter, you can find us at __ Uncanny Valley. And if, I know it looks like two, it looks like one underscore, but it's actually two. Yeah, I'll find a way to indicate the space better. But if you enjoy our content and you've enjoyed today, please go to altvr.com, and up in the upper left, you're going to see where it says channels. All right, if you press on that, you get taken to our event page. You'll see all these AltSpace events, event teams there. You see, like, and you'll see Ravenhall events, like it says on that back wall there. And if you click on that, you get taken to our event page, right? And there, if you click the subscribe button, it lets AltSpace know you enjoy our content, and it's a neat way to say thank you, because we don't get paid to do this. All right, now we're going to be pressing this big red button. And what this does is this is going to call in one of our Ravenhall Talon hovercraft ships, and it's going to come up over that wall over there, and it's going to fly across the forum here, and it's going to touch down on that landing pad there and take us over to the Ravenhall Flight Academy, in case you guys want to learn how to fly or just hang out for a little while. We're going to head on over there. So I'm going to push this button now and direct your attention to that wall.
Ravenhall
right
Talon
over there.
aircraft en route to your
That was
position.
Here we go.
Please stay clear of the landing pad. Thank you.
Okay, should coming along now. Let's see. Here it comes. Coming right up there.
We
Cool,
should really
right?
try to set this to like Flight of the Valkyries or something.
Yeah, maybe. You know what? Again, I don't know if we can use that, you know, so we could try. All right, everybody. Well, we're going to be coming down on this landing pad here, and the portal's going to be coming out. So let's head out, guys.
Talon aircraft is now boarding for transport to the Ravenhall Flight Academy. Please step into the blue light. Thank you.
All right, everybody.